Sound is personal, intimate, and emotive.
Just like this podcast.
We are audiostack.ai.
We combine AI writing.
The best synthetic voices like ours.
With production like music and mastering.
And deliver them to be heard, be it ads, podcasts, or VOs for video.
Just like this ad you're listening to right now.
However, we have millions of spots just like this on podcasts.
And rather than hearing from us, we want to hear from you.
How would you like to win an AI audio campaign for free?
Do you work with businesses, products, events, or causes that could benefit from free promotion on podcasts in the coming month?
Tell us how you might use synthetic voices.
Or dynamically change ads for a sports podcast like this versus arts, TV, and film, or even technology. Go to audiostack.ai/contest, and your company could be heard by millions. See webpage for T's and C's.
Hello, iHeart listener. We have a confession to make. Both iHeart and this commercial you're listening to right now would probably sound a heck of a lot better on the new Roku Pro Series TV. It's got side-firing speakers that fill your room with sound, Dolby Atmos audio that puts you right in the middle of the entertainment, and the ability to pair seamlessly with your home theater sound systems that already have surround sound and booming bass. If all that sounds too good to be true, it'll sound even better on the new Roku Pro Series. Your hearing isn't better, your TV is.
It's time for a Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it, because you did.
On Giants.com.
You know what I saw? New York Giant pride.
And the Giants mobile app.
17-14 is the final. One touchdown, we are world champions. Believe it, and it will happen.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun.
Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to Big Blue Kickoff Live right here on Giants.com and the Giants mobile app. John Schmeelk, Paul Dottino with you. It's all brought to you by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. If you didn't hear Thursday's show or listen to it or watch it, however you go about your BBK viewing, I suggest you go back there. Sitek and I did our NFC East position group rankings. Always one of my favorite episodes of the year. Paul and Howard are going to go on Tuesday next week. Mm-hmm. So I think we came out. Actually, I don't want to spoil how we came out. I want you and Howard to do the exercise yourself.
Yeah, don't tell us.
Well, all I was going to do was give you the total points for each team. I wasn't going to give you each position ranking, but I'd rather have you and Howard do it on your own.
I think it's better that way.
And then we'll figure it out. So
it's
I thought
fresh.
Today, and this is Tim from Charleston's call yesterday actually motivated this conversation today, along with an article that I found on PFF.com about the Giants roster and kind of where they are, how they compare to the rest of the league, the youth of the roster, and kind of what we're thinking about moving forward here into 2024. So, and as anybody that listens to the show, you know, Paul is not a big fan of PFF. I put more into their data that he does. But they had a ranking of the rosters in the NFL. And I was honestly very surprised to see the Giants ranked 31st in that roster conversation. Now, this is tricky. How much do you take quarterback in consideration when you do these rosters? Do you weigh it more than other positions? They don't have like a true mathematical formula for how they do it.
Right.
So I understand if quarterback's a huge deal, that's going to push other teams up or down, and that's how you're going to do it. But if you're looking at overall roster, I'm not saying every position's weighed equally, but I think it should be more of a look at how these teams are built in general than how one player can elevate everybody else.
I would agree with that criteria, but again, without getting into the details of what they were grading and what they were looking for, it's very difficult to dispute. I would say this, though, John. You know, anytime that you go into an exercise like this, there's always that injury factor. And they may have also included the fact that the Giants have had a lot of injuries the last few years.
Yeah, that's true, too. All right, well, here's my beef, all right? I'll break it down very quickly. So they have the Broncos at 32nd on their roster breakdown. They have them as last. Mm-hmm. And I get that to an extent, right? I mean, you look at their roster, you know, Cortland Sutton's probably their best weapon on offense. You know, after you get past, you know, Garrett Bowles, your linemen are Powers, Wattenberg, Quinn Miners, and Mike McGlinchey. That's not a really good group. On defense, Jonathan Cooper has turned into, and Baron Browning are decent edge players, you know. But then after Patrick Surtain, like, I don't know, Sean Payton got into a rough situation there, man. I don't know how he's going to dig himself out of that, but we'll see. I don't have a problem with that necessarily. My issue more are the couple teams, and I'm not trying to argue that the Giants should be like, you know, 10th or 12th or something like that. But my beef is that a couple of teams in front of them don't make a whole sense to me. Like, for example, The Carolina Panthers are ranked ahead of the Giants here on roster rankings.
Yes,
all right?
I saw that.
And Jonathan Brooks versus Devin Singletary, Xavier Legette, Adam Thielen, and Deontay Johnson. I would say that's roughly equal with the Giants wide receiver core. You know, you want to put, Deontay Johnson is probably the most proven guy out of all those players, but I think Malik Neighbors has the most promise.
Right.
Whatever the case might be. Their offensive lines, Ekwonu, Damian Lewis, Austin Corbett, Robert Hunt, Taylor Moton. I don't think that's much different than what the Giants are throwing out there on the offensive line, and they don't have an Andrew Thomas. Like the Giants do at left tackle, right? So I would give the Giants the edge there because of that. Bryce Young and Daniel Jones, if you want to say Young's unproven, he had a terrible year last year. I'm still a big fan of Bryce Young. Whatever you think of Daniel Jones, I think Daniel Jones has proven more in the NFL than Bryce Young has. Yeah. That's certainly true based on what Jones did 2 years ago. Now, 4 years from now, are we having a different conversation? Sure, but this is about how you're going to play this year. This isn't about how you're looking 4 or 5 years down the road here.
Right.
Then on defense, if you're drafting players off these two defenses, I think your first 2 picks are probably Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns before you get to Derek Brown, in my opinion. And then I think if you look at the 2 secondaries, I think Deontay Banks is the best player in the secondary, given J.C. Horn's inability to stay healthy.
I'm not so sure you don't put Thibodeau above him, too, as long as you were mentioning
Well, I was talking secondary. I would probably put Derek Brown ahead of Thibodeau in terms of ranking. Derek Brown, the defensive tackle, he's a really good player.
He's a really good player. I happen to think a lot of Thibodeau.
So I don't quite understand why the Panthers are ahead of the Giants. And then the couple that really confused me, Paul, the Patriots. Patriots do not have a good roster.
No.
I mean, their offensive line, right now they have Caden Wallace, who was a 3rd or 4th round pick this year out of Penn State as their starting left tackle. Michael Onwenu's good, but then Saidi Sow, he's a second year at Baylor, if I'm not mistaken, right? David Andrews, Cole Strange on defense. Again, Christian Barmore is good. He's not Dexter Lawrence. And Christian Gonzalez is good, but he was hurt a lot last year. So I don't understand how you would put the Patriots roster ahead of the Giants when their wide receivers are Kendrick Bourne, Demario Douglas, and KJ Osborne. I just don't see that. I don't see how the Patriots roster can be ahead of the Giants. And again, unless you're putting a lot of stock into Kyler Murray, I'm not quite sure how the Cardinals have a roster that's ranked ahead of where the Giants are, especially defensively. If you go down their defensive starting lineup here, Paul, it's Darius Robinson, Justin Jones, Zaven Collins, B.J. Ojulari, Dennis Gardeck, Chris Barnes, Kaiser White, Sean Murphy-Bunting, Max Melton, Garrett Williams, Budda Baker, Jalen Thompson. If you're putting those in with the Giants, Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, Deontay Banks, and Bobby Okereke are ranked ahead of all the guys on the Cardinals defense. And they don't have an Andrew Thomas on their offensive line either. Like, Jonah Williams is fine. He's not Andrew Thomas. And Paris Johnson, who was a first-round pick, he's going to be a good player. He didn't show enough in his first year to be in that conversation.
And what number did they put Arizona?
They were at 20. The Patriots were at 29, and the Cardinals were at 28.
Okay. The Vikings are at 21. That's the one that really offends me.
Oh, the Vikings have a good roster.
I don't think the Vikings are very good.
Paul, look at their offense.
I don't like their defense at all.
But look at their offense.
They've got some very, very good position players. Hawkinson, of course.
And their offensive
Jefferson, Addison. Good. Offensive line is good, not great. Terrific skill position players. Again, this also comes into the quarterback situation.
I agree their defense is a problem.
How do you feel about the quarterback thing? And the defense, I don't think is very good.
I agree.
At all. At all.
Their defensive personnel is a problem. But, Paul, they have one of the – if you take the quarterback out of it and you look at the rest of their group, I think it's a top 10 offense in the league.
Could be, but I think the defense is that bad. Fine. I don't like the defense at all.
And how about Washington?
Put it this way, for them to be 21 is really high.
And then Washington's offensive line to me is problematic. They have they have a lot of issues on the offensive line. Their wide receivers, again, I had them, I don't want to tease it, but I had them and the Giants very close in terms of wide receiver rankings. Rookie quarterback, but their secondary is a mess. Like, their corner and safety position for Washington, it's very messy. And they don't have any defensive ends either anymore. They have some good defensive tackles, but they don't have any really good defensive ends either. They have Dorrance Armstrong and Cleveland Farrell, who are fine, but they're not anyone that are difference makers. So I just was confused why some of those teams were ranked ahead of the Giants when I went through it. And frankly, even a team like the Chargers, who, once you get past some of their really good players, they lost a lot of guys this offseason with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and stuff like that. They have some issues on offense. Justin Herbert, of course, I think probably elevates that group a little bit higher, which I get. But, again, just something I noticed. And I wanted to look a little bit at, the Giants' starters and just who's going to be playing for them, because Tim brought this up yesterday, and just generally talk about the youth of the unit, because I do think when you think about it, Paul, it's pretty telling how young they are. I guess before we do that, we could take a look at PFF for each one of these groups. For the rosters, they talked about the biggest strength, biggest weakness, X factor, rookie to watch, things like that, right?
Well, before you go there, though,
Yes.
John, I think it's important to know, too, that, and I don't know where they got these numbers from, over-under win total. The Giants were listed at number 31 on their rankings list, and their over-under win total that was comparable, and I'm guessing they got that from Vegas.
From Vegas, yes. From
Okay,
Vegas, yes.
was 6.5. And you go all the way up to, what number did I see? Before you get higher than 6.5. So that basically tells you that there are 6.5 is Minnesota.
Minnesota's
At
6.5 over under?
They're 6.5 at
That's lower
21.
than I thought. Okay.
So you're talking about 10 teams, 21 to 31.
So maybe there's not much separating that group, is what
That's what I'm telling you.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
So if they all have 6.5 over under from 21 to 31, what are we doing here? We're talking about one bounce of a ball. So
And who's healthiest?
yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point. I didn't even look at the over-under numbers. I think that's a good point, Paul. And they just kind of went through what the strength and weakness of the Giants in 2023 were. And believe it or not, when I guess they go through their position grades, and and I guess hard for me to disagree, because the Giants, their biggest strength, and this is based on 2023 and what the Giants did last year. A lot of things have changed, on these rosters from last year to this year. So they basically said they thought one of the biggest strengths last year was the Giants in coverage. And I guess it's hard to argue with it, because they didn't give up a ton of big plays in the passing game.
Right.
And you go through the year, they had much more trouble stopping the run than they had stopping the pass on defense. So I guess that does make a lot of sense. And the pass rush, though, you had some sack numbers. It certainly wasn't consistent enough game in, game out.
No, and it wasn't efficient enough, which is even more important in my mind.
Not surprisingly, the biggest weakness in 2023 on offense was the offensive line.
How about the whole unit?
Yeah, and that's what it says. And they just say basically, I'll just read the first line. The Giants' offensive line was by far the NFL's worst in PFF grades last year, which if you watch the thing, it doesn't surprise you. The combination of injuries to veterans and struggles from young players led to immense struggles in the pass and run games. That sounds about right.
There are some obvious things that even a blind squirrel could get correct.
X factor for 2024, they list right tackle Evan Neal, which I don't disagree with that. Try to get him to step up and play better. No problem with that.
Keep him on the field, too.
Yep. Rookie to watch, they have Malik Neighbors listed there for that, which I think that's pretty obvious, too. I don't think that's a big surprise here.
No.
So just talking about the youth of it real quick, and then again, we're opening up the phones at 201-939-4513. Get in the line. We'll take a lot of your calls today, folks. Just look at the age of some of the guys that are going to have prominent roles on this team. Malik Neighbors, 20. Cordell Flott, 22. Jalen Hyatt, 22. Drew Phillips, 22. Deontay Banks, 23. Daniel Bellinger, 23. Dane Belton, 23. It's funny, Dane Belton's actually younger than Tyler Nubin, which is funny. Other guys that are going to play significant roles. Theo Johnson, 23. Darius Musow, 23. Evan Neal, just 23 years old. Remember, he came out as a young player. Just 23 years old. Tyler Nubin, 23 years old. Aziz Ojulari, 23 years old. And remember, he's entering his fourth year. 23.
I know.
And again, this is what their age is now. Some of these might change by the time you get to September 1st when the Giants get into the season. I'm just reading it off the website. Kayvon Thibodeau, 23. DJ Davidson, 24. Trying to find a couple of guys. Micah McFadden, 24. Marcus McKeithen, 24. Jason Pinnock, just 24. Tyrone Tracy, 24. Isaiah Hodgins, 25. Oh, now we're getting to the old guys here, Paul. Nick McLeod, just 25. John Michael Schmitz, 25. Andrew Thomas, just 25. It feels like he's been here forever. Just 25 years old. He came out young, too. Brian Burns, 26. So you go through this list, Paul. Dexter Lawrence, 26. And the Giants are rolling out a lot of young guys. John Runyon's just 26 years old, Paul. Like, Jermaine Illuminor is the only guy on offense, if I remember Tim's call from yesterday, that's going to be over 27 years old. It's just the youth of this Giants team. And I know I'm not going to say to fans be patient, because they've been patient long enough. But I think you have to understand that the Giants are going to be rolling out there a very, very young team here. Even some of the free agents and trades they made for players are guys in the beginning of their prime. These are not older players. And it's funny, the way the roster since Joe Schoen has got here has played out is while they've drafted a lot of players, they've and all that sort of stuff, they've also had to let some really good players go because they were on the older side, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like some of the best players that were in this building when Joe Shane got here were Saquon Barkley, no longer here. Adoree Jackson, no longer here.
Mm-hmm.
Leonard Williams, no longer here.
Mm-hmm.
Those are three of the better players on the roster, and then throw in Xavier McKinney, who developed into one of the better players, no longer here. Now, not bringing back Barkley and McKinney in some ways, in a lot of ways, frankly, was Joe Shane's choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was his choice not to bring those guys back. But there have been good players to walk out because you're trying to prioritize money or players at other positions, but it's just a very, very young group.
Well, if you recall the 2016 playoff team that went out to Lambeau and played the Packers, had a bunch of older guys on that team.
Yeah.
And maybe that's how we got fooled. We didn't look at the age enough and some of the wear that was on those tires, because we all thought that after that playoff run, that in 2017 they'd be primed for another opportunity, at least a contending at a postseason spot. As it turned out, not only was the chemistry bad on that team because it totally fell apart right from the very get-go, but in addition to that, you had a lot of players who had played much better football in 16. They were older players who didn't play nearly as well in 17 and showed their age very, very quickly. That's why I felt much better about the 2022 team, which was much younger in most spots than the 16 team was. And I thought that last year they could potentially, be that kind of team that would put together back-to-back strong seasons. Now, there were close games, there were injuries, a lot of other things went bad last year, but one thing that didn't go bad is that this team did not suddenly get old overnight. It was not an old team last year. That's not the reason why the team failed. And it certainly hasn't gotten older this year. In fact, if anything, John, and I don't know the numbers, I think this team is younger this year than it was last year.
I mean, there's no Leonard Williams and no Adoree Jackson on defense.
Right?
So it goes to figure that it is, I would imagine.
And even McKinney, who'd been here for a handful of years,
yeah,
isn't
he
here.
was still
And
a young player, though.
Still
right.
a young player, but Barkley's been here a handful of years, and he's
Barkley
gone.
would have been one of the older players on offense.
Okay.
For sure.
All right. Now, I know Singletary is, quote, now a graybeard, right?
I think him and Barkley are they're probably around the same age, right?
Well, yeah,
If I'm not
because
mistaken.
4 years in Buffalo, 1 year with Houston. So this will be Singletary's sixth season.
Yeah, which is the same for Saquon. I think Singletary probably came out a little bit later than
I don't know about their birthdays, but
I'll check that out right now.
The point being that one of the good factors that you'd like to point to with this Giants team right now
He's
is
26.
Okay,
Devin
there you go.
Singletary,
All
and
right.
Barkley is 27, so he's actually younger than Barkley by a year.
So the point to be made, and it piggybacks off of what you just said, is that you're looking at a team that you believe has a lot of improving talent with upside, and across the board, the ages are all suppressed. That's good. That's really good. It bodes well for, if you can get everything out of these guys, it bodes well for a nice 3-year window.
And this is the trick, right? And this is the theme we talk about every offseason.
Max him out.
And I don't want to belabor the point, but I think it's important, given the context of the conversation, to do it for fans that maybe don't listen every day. The key to this season now, Paul, look, I think they've done a pretty good job of having some established stars on both sides of the ball, right? Andrew Thomas on offense, legitimate all-pro player. Dexter Lawrence on defense, legitimate all-pro player.
Sure.
Brian Burns and Okereke, I think, have proven to be Pro Bowl level players, right? So those are
They're
kind of
right up
like
there.
those are kind of like your four guys that I think have been in the league for a while and have established themselves, and you kind of know what you're getting out of them, right?
Right.
And you feel good about what you're getting, snap in, snap out, and you feel pretty good about it that you're going to get really high level play from them. Now, they don't really have any other older vets except for, again, Jermaine Illuminor and maybe Jalen Mills on defense, who might play a decent role in nickel or dime.
Potentially.
That are going to be role players, for lack of a better term, like solid guys you'll get solid production from. The rest of this team and the rest of the snaps, Paul, are going to go to guys that some are rookies. And again, you never want to count on too much of a rookie because rookies are unreliable. There's a reason that they're rookies, right? And they're rookie scale.
Sure.
But the guys that are going to turn this team from a 6-win team back into a 9 or 10-win team and give them a chance to make the playoffs are now, quite frankly, the guys that Joe Shane has drafted over the past 3 years and 3 drafts. Can those guys develop into not just baseline level starters, but above average starters, and can some of them develop into Pro Bowl players? That's what we're looking for now. That group of guys that are, young, some of them young veterans that are in their third or fourth year. Like, I would consider Kayvon Thibodeau a young veteran at this point.
Absolutely.
That's what he is. Can these young veterans meet and find the potential the Giants thought they had when they drafted him? And we're not talking 6th and 7th round picks here, okay? We're not talking about that.
No.
Kayvon Thibodeau, first round pick. Evan Neal, first round pick, right? Malik Neighbors, a rookie, I know. Still, first round pick. Second round picks. Jalen Hyatt was third round pick. Wando Robinson, second round pick. I know Ojulari wasn't Shane. He was back. Dave Gettleman, second round pick, and he stepped up and
JMS.
Evan Neal, first round pick. John Michael Schmidt, second round pick. These are all guys. Deontay Banks, first round pick, and he developed into a Pro Bowl cornerback this year. It's another important guy. Can these guys turn into Pro Bowl players? Because if you're going to succeed in the NFL, Paul, you have to be able to draft Pro Bowl players with your premium draft picks. And frankly, if you don't, it ain't going to work.
No.
You're going to fail. You can't sustain free agency. It's too expensive in trades. It's too expensive to build your roster that way. The guys you draft have to become Pro Bowl players that carry your team. Hopefully still on rookie contracts, so you can have Pro Bowl players on rookie contracts combined with free agents you pay a lot of money to.
You're asking for a lot now. But yes.
I mean,
that's the preview.
Hold on. Look at the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons, Trayvon Diggs, Deron Bland. 4 Pro Bowl players, all on rookie contracts.
Yeah, and they're not smelling the Super Bowl.
They've won 12 games 3 years in a row.
I know.
How do you like that?
I know. But
don't downplay 12 wins. Paul,
I get it.
When's the last time the Giants got 12 wins?
Many millenniums.
The 80s.
Understood.
The 80s. Actually,
I know.
Or was that team early 2000s? The one that
understood.
Yeah.
Understood.
So
understood.
And look at the Eagles, right? Devontae Smith, Jordan Mailata was an almost Pro Bowl level player, making very little money.
Very good player, no matter what.
Landon Dickerson was a really good player before they paid him this offseason. Go down the list. Teams that don't have, the Patrick Mahomes level quarterbacks, they manage to draft guys and they play at a Pro Bowl level, and then you eventually pay them or you let them go if you can't, right? But that's what has to happen now.
Well, it's homegrown philosophy, John. Homegrown philosophy.
It's not even a philosophy. It's the only way you can do it in the NFL.
Because you overpay for free agents, and once you get yourself into that problem, you start paying for out of desperation. You absolutely cripple yourself. You know that. We all know that.
So when we show up to camp, guys, the people I'm going to be watching are the ones that we just talked about. I'll bring it up right now. I'll bring up all the Giants draft classes, and I'll go through the players. These are the guys that have to turn into players if the Giants want to make significant progress this year. I'm going to go back to the 2021 draft. And right now, what's killing the Giants, Paul, I'm going to be totally honest, is that the 2021 draft right now looks terrible. It's a bad draft. Kadarius Toney in the first round, we know about that. Azeez Ojulari, I think he is still a good player. He just cannot stay on the field, which, by the way, is the reason he dropped to the second round. Remember, we talked about it. He dropped because of the knee. Now,
the knee hasn't been the problem here. It's been other stuff.
But again, sometimes one thing can affect others, and then you can't stay healthy.
Yes.
The bottom line. And then, Aaron Robinson's been hurt too. Ellison Smith never worked out. He had injury issues. And Gary Brightwell got let go. Darius Williams isn't here anymore. So 2021 draft right now, aside from Azeez Ojulari, has literally been a zero. It's been a zero. So that's one thing that's hurting them right now.
Devastating draft. Devastating.
Really bad. All right? But now, you go to the drafts that Joe Shane had. All right? These are the premium picks. Kayvon Thibodeau. Can he continue the progress that he showed last year? Which he showed progress last year with the 12.5.
Sure he did.
Evan Neal. You know what? His progress will be, can you be a average NFL starter at right tackle at this point? And then hope you can build from there. Just get to average, okay? Wando Robinson. Going to be one of your 3 starting wide receivers. Can he stay healthy the whole year? And can he be an explosive player? Josh Azudu. At this point, given who else is here, unless there's an injury, I think you're looking, hopefully he can be a high-level swing backup somewhere. Right now, with his, that hasn't worked out the way you would have wanted. Cordell Flott. Right now, he's penciled as one of your starters. Be a good one. Daniel Bellinger. Penciled in as one of your starters. Be a good one. Dane Belton. Trying to hold off Tyler Newman to stay a starter. Be a good one. Micah McFadden. Penciled in as one of your starters. Be a good one. He was pretty good last year already. Just don't miss as many tackles. And then DJ Davidson, can he break his way into the rotation on the defensive line? And then Marcus McKeithen and Darian Beavers will try to make the team at the back end of the roster. But, that's the 2022 draft, and then I'll hit the 2023 one in a second. But, Paul, that year they drafted 3, 6, 9, 11 players, and right now 3, 4, 5, 7 of them could be starters this year.
Yeah.
7.
That's the idea.
Right, but can you be good? Just starting is not good enough. You got to be good starters.
It goes back to what we talked about several weeks ago, and it's those 2 words that are miles apart. Production, projection.
Yeah. Potential and production I like better. Right? Because potential gets people fired. You know how that is.
I get it. That's fine. Bottom line, right now, there is not enough concrete production across the board from all of these players to give you any confidence that you can stand on a piece of concrete and say, this is what this team is and will be. You just don't know. You just don't. I mean, that piece of concrete is kind of rocking left and right like a boat in the middle of the ocean. You just don't know.
Now, they've had some bad luck with this too, right? Evan Neal has suffered a bunch of injuries. Wando Robinson tore his ACL, right?
Aaron Robinson shredded his knee.
Right. Josh Azudu suffered 2 injuries.
Yeah.
Well, Micah McFadden, was he's the one guy from that draft class that is really still. Even Dane Belton, his rookie year, dealt with injuries the whole year. He couldn't stay healthy. Marcus McKeithen hurt himself. DJ Davidson hurt himself. All those guys. I mean, literally in that first year, other than Kayvon Thibodeau and Micah McFadden, everyone else dealt with injuries in their rookie year that year.
Yes.
And they lost significant snaps.
Correct.
Every other guy.
Which set them back
in
their progress. So when we talk about show me is your third year, these guys, unfortunately, it's almost unfair to say show me in your third year because they lost so much time.
Well, in the NFL now,
it's too bad.
In the NFL now, you kind of want to show me in your second year. You almost don't want to wait for the third one.
The reality is you gotta do it now. You gotta rush it. You gotta do it now.
And then
there's no time like the present.
2023 class. Look, your 3 premium picks: Deonte Banks, John Michael Schmitz, Jalen Hyatt. All 3 guys should have prominent roles this year. What do you want to call Hyatt a starter? I don't know how they're going to rotate the 4 wide receivers. However you're going to do it, doesn't matter. He's going to be a prominent player, right?
I say rotational player.
Can those 3 guys be good starting players for you?
Gotta be.
They have to be. If you want to be a good team, they have to be. So that's really what you're looking at here, where I think the Giants do have some high-level players. You mentioned Andrew Thomas on offense, Okereke, Dexter Lawrence, and Brian Burns, established good players on defense. But now, can these young guys fill in those blanks and become homegrown, high-quality players to join the ranks of Dexter Lawrence and Andrew Thomas?
Yeah, and I don't care, quite frankly, who it is on offense, whether it's Neighbors or Robinson or Hyatt or Singletary. I don't care who it is. Somebody on offense must step up and become a headache player.
Oh, I didn't mention...
Because they don't have a single headache player on offense. As we sit here today, we do not know who their headache player will be in 2024. We hope Neighbors is. Yeah. We don't know.
Yeah, and Singletary, I should have mentioned, is one of those veterans you expect to be a solid starter contributor. I forgot to list him in that group for sure. And then, of course, you have the offensive line and the quarterback, which, one obviously impacts the other a whole lot, where for the quarterback to be better, the offensive line has to be better. Mm-hmm. But you just need better play there. And PFF had that listed as the Giants' biggest weakness last year. That's the reason they went out and signed 2 guys that should step in as starters in week 1. Whether they're 2 guards, if one swings out to tackle, we'll see. Mm-hmm. But this is where the improvement has to happen. And if you don't get the young guys stepping up, I mean, that's really the 3. Those are the 3 things, right? Offensive line improving, young guys stepping up, and then the quarterback playing better with that stuff going on around them. Those are the 3 things to me that you need this year if you want to make a playoff run.
That's very, very fair.
Am I missing anything?
It's very fair. I think the one part to this that is still, besides injuries, because we can put that aside. You can't ever talk about
that. You can't control it.
You can't control it.
Yeah.
The one part that I'm curious about is that in his 3rd year, Brian Daboll, who has been calling all the plays during the spring, I think a lot of people are guessing he is going to take over the play calling this fall.
We'll see.
We don't know.
He said that both him and Mike Kafka says that decision has not been made yet.
Now, that is a significant decision. And I've always said I prefer if the head coach does not call the plays. I specifically feel that way when he's taking a first-time head coaching position.
I feel better about it in his third year.
I do feel better about it once he's gotten his feet wet, and at least he now has an understanding as to the environment and what he's dealing with. I will always be a guy who prefers that the head coach does not call the plays, but again, it's been done in the NFL. We've seen coaches win that way. Not as a rookie head coach, but after they've been in it for a while, we will see how that works out. Yeah. Because that, if it is going to change, is a potentially dramatic change. Potentially. We don't know.
And it's funny, when we were talking about in our NFC East rankings yesterday, we talked about and I made this point, and this is kind of separate from what you and Howard are going to do, so I think it's an interesting separate point. Who do you think the best offensive coach is in the division? If you were to pick one coach, either head or coordinator or whatever, in the NFC East to run your offense, what coach would you pick?
Wow.
It's a good question, right?
Because you're going to pick the coordinators in that soup.
You can put the coordinators in the soup, absolutely.
Wow. Well, over the course of time, the best guy would be McCarthy over the course of time. He's got the best resume. I don't particularly like McCarthy as a very good head coach myself.
But in terms of if you want to build
in terms of resume, he has had the most success calling plays than anybody else in the division. That was your question, right?
Well, I mean, Dable had a lot of success calling plays in Buffalo.
He did, but McCarthy over a longer period of time had a higher level.
So let me phrase it a slightly different way. Your point is totally sound. I don't disagree.
I mean, it begrudges me to say it, but
if I gave the same 11 players on offense, I put 11 guys on the field,
right.
Which, if you give that group a coordinator, right, and it can be a head coach, a guy to run that offense, what coach in the division is getting the most out of that 11 guys?
Well, that is a different question, because now you're looking for a coach who's going to get them to overachieve and to max out the juice from the orange.
That's what I'm looking for.
McCarthy's never done that. In my opinion, he's never done that.
That's why I'm phrasing it the way I'm phrasing it.
So it's a different question. I might go Brian Dable.
That was what I said yesterday.
I mean,
I think Kellen Moore's in the conversation. He's a good offensive coach.
And it's hard to say that considering he had Josh Allen. You
mean Justin Herbert?
No. Dable.
Oh, Dable, you mean? Okay, yeah. Okay.
Dable had Josh Allen.
Yes, I thought you meant Kellen Moore. Okay.
When you got a literal all-pro
freak show,
superstar quarterback who has extremely rare tools.
Yeah, but
it's hard to say that he got all the juice out of that orange because Josh Allen was his quarterback.
Dable did get all the juice out of the orange 2 years ago with the Giants offense.
He did.
When they had very little going on there talent-wise, and he turned that into a top 12 offense EPA-wise.
Him and Kafka collaboratively.
Yeah, I know, of course.
I'll answer the question by going with Dable. In spite of the Josh Allen greatness, I'll go Dable. I would bet he could maximize the potential of the 11 you put on the field.
Which is why, if he does end up calling plays, and by the way, even if he doesn't, he's still heavily involved in the offensive game planning and everything, that you hope that can help him make a difference on offense as well. That's it.
I would love to see it, but as of now, it's not a for sure.
No, we don't know that. Absolutely. Anything else before we get to the call?
No, I think that's fair enough. We got people lighting them up.
We do. 201-939-4513. Folks, don't forget, on June 20th, we have Giants 100, a night with legends at the theater at Madison Square Garden. Tickets are still available. Less than 100 left on Ticketmaster.com, guys. So if you want to go, there is not a bad seat in the house. It's a small venue. It's just over 5,000 people, I believe, that fit in there. It'll be a fun night. Giants legends will be there. Bob Pop will host. You got current Giants there as well. So go to Ticketmaster.com to buy those tickets, and all net proceeds will benefit the Giants Foundation. So you're also helping out a very good cause. So go check that out. Again, Ticketmaster.com, June 20th. Giants 100, a night with legends. All right, let's go to Hugo in New Jersey. He'll lead us off today. Hugo, what's going on?
Hey, good afternoon, guys, and happy Father's Day to you both. And
thank you, Hugo.
Thank you.
Fathers out there listening.
Back at you.
As an early present, I got 100th off-season merchandise. And man, I got to say, this item is really beautifully done. The sleeve has all the logos the Giants have ever used.
The blue hoodie is what you're talking about? Yep, no, it's nice. It is nice.
Well, if I lose about 10 pounds, I'm sure I'll get compliments of how I look in the fall when the hoodie.
Okay.
John, interestingly, a few weeks back, I mentioned the name Eli Shaw, and he did an interview with Art Stapleton. I don't know if you've heard, but he mentioned a couple of interesting things. These were, I think, reveals, which is that Lawrence Taylor and Phil Simms will be at the Legends event on the 20th. And he also, I don't know if he meant to say this, but that Joe Morris made the top 100 players list. And he said it in the context of, when we make these calls, the players get very emotional. And he noted Joe Morris in particular. I got to say, the one thing, the marketing and brand strategy is in good hands with Eli. I was really impressed with the interview.
He's been here a long time.
I will send this audio to him, and hopefully he'll send you a check, Hugo.
Well, one part of marketing is product, right? And in this case, product on the field. I gotta say, one thing that does concern me is the use of one of our young players, and I know other people in the media have talked about this, but I thought about it independently. I really don't like the concept of playing Josh Azudu at tackle. And I'll give you two reasons. One, he was a 67th overall pick, and he was clearly drafted to be a guard. I think he's a guard, not a tackle.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think of a scenario where Evan Neal does not play well, and there's a fair probability of that. And the reason I say that is just because he hasn't had an opportunity to do much in the off season. So if you're not really doing much, it's hard to make improvement. But I'm rooting for Evan. But let's just say he doesn't do well. Well, then the logical thing is you're going to move Illuminor from left guard to right tackle. And then you're going to be looking for a swing tackle, but you're also going to be looking for a left guard. And I think the name that's being thrown around is Aaron Stinney. The concept of Aaron Stinney being the starting left guard just doesn't do it for me.
Well, I mean Hugo, by the way, I think if Neal does lose the tackle job, I think there's a probability that he could be the guy you move in there at left guard.
Well, that's an unknown. Right?
Of course.
And in the case of Josh Azudu, he really hasn't mastered the guard position, and now he's taking, it sounds like, exclusively all his reps a right tackle. Now, when you draft someone at 67 and interior offensive lineman, you think he has upside, right? I always I think I talked to Lance once, and he poo-pooed it as a third-round pick. Well, 67, Creed Humphrey was drafted at 63. And by his second year, he made All-Pro. And the NFL is littered with late second and early third-round picks, interior offensive linemen who are very successful.
No, that's true.
Jonah Jackson,
no, that's
for
fair.
example,
No, you draft Azudu with the intention that he is going to be a very important part of your team.
Probably a starter at some point.
And if not a starter, a significant rotational player.
Yeah.
Absolutely you do. No, do not, to this point, Azudu's production has not matched where he was taken. But there are reasons for that, primarily injury.
And that even makes it more important that he trains at his natural position guard because he hasn't gotten the reps because of injury.
Now, Hugo, I have no idea. I have no idea if this is true. I have not had this conversation. I have not done a one-on-one with Carm Basil. I spoke to him in passing. I was in. We did the media interviews, and he probably wouldn't give me a straight answer on it anyway because he's from the Patriots. These guys don't exactly blab their thought process on a lot of this stuff. But maybe they feel like he's gotten enough reps at guard and they feel good about what he can do there and how his comfort level at left guard specifically that, remember, the spring is a teaching part of the year, so they want to give him some experience and do a lot of the teaching at the tackle spot in case they do need him to be a backup swing tackle more so than to be a starting guard. I'll be interested to see if when they get pads on in the summer, if they do get him some reps at guard as well. I don't know how they're going to handle that. We'll have to wait and see.
It's entirely possible, too, that they just believe they've got more bodies, capable bodies, inside.
Oh, no, they do.
Okay?
Yeah.
Well, we think so.
Well, remember,
maybe they do too.
Remember, Matt Nelson was working on the side most of the spring, so he wasn't even working a tackle with team reps, so they kind of were out of guys out there.
So it seems to me that I could put a logical path to why they did this spring. So although I agree with you, I think Ezeudu's best position in the NFL is guard. I always felt that way, never ever wavered on that. When he went out there last year, it was out of necessity. They did it. They put him in a really tough spot, and it didn't go very well. He would even tell you that. At the same time, given the situation and the circumstances that they're working with right now, the ingredients in the soup, I could understand why they're doing it the way they're doing it. Long term, remember, just because he's working out there right now doesn't mean he'll be there really for the season or even for next year. Maybe in 2026 he's the starting guard. Who knows?
Okay. Well, look, that's one development that has me concerned, and one that I'll be carefully watching throughout training camp. So I'll leave it at that. I know you have other callers, and again, have a great weekend, guys.
No, I appreciate it, Hugo, and I think it'll be interesting to see how they divvy those snaps out, Paul, to the to the offensive line once they get to the summer and the pads come on.
Well, Brasillo told us, he was very honest. I don't prefer rotation. I've been involved with those before. It tends to hurt guys' confidence, so I'd rather not do it. And I'd rather have my starting five set by late in training camp. Well, he spelled it out.
In the spring,
he spelled it out.
The guys have been at the same spot every practice.
So
there's not been a lot of moving around.
Now, what we do know is that Neal has had to miss a lot of those reps in the spring.
But
we know Thomas has had to miss reps in the spring.
Good point, too.
Right? So Ezeudu has had a lot of opportunity, more so than a third tackle would, to play both of those spots.
Almost by necessity.
Correct.
But saying Neal, Thomas, and I mentioned Nelson, their veteran addition, he was working on the side for a lot of the spring, too. So you run out of tackles, so you just needed a body out there, which I think was part of it. And I do think, and I think Bobby Johnson said this to me last year, they do think Ezeudu's feet give him the ability to play tackle.
He graded out in the scouting reports as very athletic for his size.
And we talked about when they drafted him, we thought he was a pretty good athlete.
Yeah.
But again, Hugo, I'm with you. The small sample size we got of Ezeudu at tackle last year did not go well.
He was thrown into a tough spot.
Did not go well. So I understand where you're coming from. But again, the option's always there if you want to slide him back into the guard. You certainly can. I think figuring out the back end of that offensive line depth chart in the summer is an underrated position battle, too, which will be a lot of fun to watch.
For sure. And just again, understand something, that during the course of the season, there are going to be things that will force their hand into many directions, some of which are not ideal, but you just have to go through them. And this is what we've seen actually more often than not over the last several years here. They had to call Justin Pugh in off the sofa. I mean, things happen that just force you to do stuff that are not ideal or that you really don't even want to do.
Yeah. And look, you just hope that they stay healthier, and that'll make it. That'll go a long way.
That's number one.
Towards making this
more than anything
better,
else.
So.
Everybody stay on the field.
Yeah. 201-939-4513. I haven't talked to Charlie in Portland, Maine in forever. By the way, we have some open lines if you guys want to get in before we wrap up the show. Hi, Charlie. We got some time here, so we can have an extended conversation. Don't piss Paul off at all right?
Don't invite that. Hello, Charlie.
Hey, John. Hey, Paul.
Hi, Charlie. How are you, man? How's your summer going?
I'm good. Everything's good. I hope everything's good with you guys.
Yeah, everything's great.
Happy Father's Day to you both.
Back at you.
Paul's daughter just got married. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
I haven't had a chance to congratulate you on that.
That's a very exciting day for
her. Hey, look, it's kind of, when you were talking about the best players and you named Lawrence and you named Thomas and you named, it's pretty pathetic when you can't even name your quarterback as one of those people. But that's where we're at.
Well, no, Charlie, before you go any further, let me make something clear.
I'm not going any further.
When you talk about headache players, the quarterback is aside from that. He does not count.
Well, no, look, Charlie. Charlie, no one here is arguing that Daniel Jones has shown to be a Pro Bowl level player yet. He's not.
No.
And by the way, there are about 15 teams in the NFL that have that same exact situation.
That's true, too. But in
there's
general,
15 others that don't.
But in general, when you talk about the headache player who the coordinators have to prepare for, the quarterback goes without saying because you have to get ready for the other team's quarterback no matter what. Headache players are non-quarterbacks.
Hey, Charlie,
by definition.
And Charlie, when I listed the 3 things that have to get better, was the quarterback not one of the 3 things on my list?
We agree on that.
It was the last thing you said.
It wasn't ranking in order of importance. I was just giving 3. I wasn't putting them in order.
I know. Hey, look, I just want to say something about the offensive line.
Sure.
I know it's just OTAs, blah, blah, blah. But what I have a problem with is, Illuminor had a press conference, and he said, I don't want to be thrown out to right tackle. I want to stay where I am so I can hone in on that one position. If they got me a guard, I want to stay there and get better at it. And to me, the body language he had, I don't think he was very happy about it, but that's just me reading it. But
oh, no, Charlie, honestly, I've had private conversations with him, like off to the side, and he has told me, and he told us to me when he first got here, he goes, John, I do not care where I play. I just want to start. And when he arrived here, on the record with me in an interview, I asked him, where do you want to play? He goes, John, I do not care where I play. I just want to start. And basically what he said in that press conference, if you watch the whole thing, is that I'm so comfortable at right tackle. If they need me there, I know I can slide out there, no problem. Right. But for now, as I'm, the goal is, he said, I have faith in Evan out there to hold down that spot. If the plan is for me to be at left guard, I want to rep that as much as I can. And then if I have to move to right tackle, that's kind of been the spot I've been at for the last couple of years. I feel comfortable enough where I can plug in there if I have to.
Charlie, you're misreading the temperature of what he said. It was a preference given in John's context. It was not so much, hey, I'm assertive about this. I'm going to be a left guard, and that's it. I think you're misreading the temperature. I really do.
All right, well, let me finish what I wanted to say.
Yeah, sure.
For one thing, Illuminor's been playing on the right side pretty much his whole career. His number of snaps at tackle were over 2,000. Number of snaps at guard were about 500. And the thing is, he's always played on the right side.
Well, he started out on the left when he began his career, but he was hurt, and then he has been mostly a right guy for the rest of his career. That is true. But don't say he's never played over there. That's not true.
Well, he hasn't played much over there. All I'm saying is, he's been on the right side. Why are you putting him on the left side? And then you got Runyon. He says, I'd rather play left guard. That's my preference. And then you put him on the right side. And then
Charlie, I'll just say this, Charlie. Remember, no one knows Jermaine Illuminor better than Carmen Brasillo does.
Correct.
And when I'm talking to the players, he talks to these guys, and that's a decision. You better run, Charlie. The cops have finally found you, by the way. Be careful. I have to trust Carmen Brasillo here that he knows the players well. He's talked to them, and especially Jermaine Illuminor, that he's going to put him in the right spot.
Yeah, but it doesn't make sense to me. And the other thing doesn't make sense to me. Neil has an issue, right? And the thing is, he's injured. He's got an ankle. I don't know how long it takes for a fractured ankle to get repaired, but there's got to be a time frame on it. There's got to be it takes 6 months, it takes 5 months, it takes whatever.
The expectation is he'll be ready to go first day of camp. That's what Brian Dable and both Evan Neal said last week.
Coach said the whole roster is going to be ready the first day of camp.
Hopefully.
Well, that's the plan. That's the plan.
Yeah, well, that wasn't a confident, definite to me. But anyway,
only time will tell, Charlie. Come on, you know better than that.
But the thing is, putting Zudu there as a swing tackle, it's not. I know maybe it's just because we ran out of bodies, but to me, that's a disaster ready to happen again. Let me put it this way: this O-line has not been fixed. It has not been fixed.
Well, Troy, we don't know yet. We haven't seen them play. How do we know?
They haven't even hit.
I already know. We might go from 85 sacks to 65, but that ain't very good. I'll tell you that. That's not very good.
I would be very surprised, Charlie, if the Giants gave up more than, and that's a super high number. I'd be surprised if they gave up more than 55, but I'll use your number. I'd be shocked, blown away if they gave up 65 sacks this year.
All right. All I'm saying is, I don't think they fixed the O-line yet, which is pathetic. And if we haven't, the owner of this team is going to be very, very upset because that was his only mandate he gave them: fix this O-line, right?
He hates
So-
to lose, period, Charlie.
No, look,
I
but
know.
is it fair? Is Charlie right? Has John Mara stated that he's tired of seeing this O-line be a problem? He stated that.
Sure he has.
Absolutely. Just like the rest of us.
So anyway, all I know is we have to have a lot better quarterback play than we've had, and I don't think Jones is going to step up to it because he is who he is. So you got to hope that maybe Locke is going to be the guy that's going to step in there. I don't know, but we got all these weapons, and this is what we keep doing: is wash and rinse. Bring in all these weapons for Jones. Bring on all these guys.
Charlie,
now we got Neighbors.
You can, Charlie, hold on. When has Daniel Jones had good weapons before this year?
He had like Paris Hilton. He had Waller. He had
Paris
Hyatt.
Hilton?
Paris Hilton.
Oh, my.
Charlie, no, Charlie, I am being dead serious. If you have time one day, Don, we have one more call coming in. You can screen them. If you have time one day, go look at the Giants wide receivers before this year, over the past 4 years. Find me a team that's had less productive wide receivers than the Giants have had.
Well, part of that
Good
is
luck.
because of the quarterback. It's part of the quarterback.
Okay, but those receivers haven't gone elsewhere and done anything either.
But Jones doesn't. He doesn't take the chances. He doesn't throw people open.
Oh,
I mean,
God.
I just saw a play from Eli Manning to Jennings. This was a few years ago. He had two guys covering him, and he threw the ball about 40 yards right on a dime in between two guys, and it was a touchdown. Jones would have never.
Charlie, you know
ever
what your
thrown
problem
that
is? As we sit here and we talk about projections and production, every projection you have is negative. Every single one.
Well, Charlie, I want
That's your problem.
And I want to add this to you too. I really want you to think about this. You called up for 2 years, and all you did was complain about Daniel Jones's turnovers, right? Well, if
He
you
got rid of them.
If you have wide receivers that are young and not very good, and you're worried about throwing interceptions, would you throw the ball into coverage when you can't trust your wide receiver to make a play?
Well, how come Tyler Taylor and even DeVito did? And
DeVito
they made
didn't.
plays.
DeVito didn't.
He had a couple of good throws. Tyler Taylor had a few
couple of
good
good
He
throws.
had a
throws.
couple of good throws. That's
Wow.
fine. Okay, he had a couple of
Man,
good throws.
so
Daniel Jones.
your standards for everybody else are rock bottom, but for Daniel, they're up here. Charlie, come on, man. Would you
When I
please
see
get a dose of reality before your next call? Please, just once.
Well, no. Until Daniel Jones shows me he is more than a mediocre quarterback, I'm going to be on his case until he's gone. Period.
No, see, Charlie.
But if he shows me-
Here's the thing. Like, you just said more than a mediocre quarterback, right? The way you talk about him like he's the worst quarterback in football. That's not mediocre. So which one is
Charlie,
it?
you make him sound like Joe Pizarczyk, for God's sakes. Come on.
Charlie, no, seriously. In all seriousness, if you call up and you say the guy's mediocre, right?
Yeah.
I could understand that argument. That's fine. Based on his stats and his numbers over the course of his career, we can disagree as to why and the reasons for it are. That's fine. But if you want to look at the numbers and you want to say mediocre, okay, I buy that. At least that's an argument, a conversation we can have, okay? But the way you talk about him, and other people have too, in like the blogosphere and all that stuff, the social media, all that stuff. People talk about him like he shouldn't even be a backup quarterback in the league sometimes. And I feel like it's swung from off the playoff year. I'm having to talk people down from making him a top 10 quarterback to now I'm trying to talk people up from having him as the 40th best quarterback in the league. Like, can we find a reasonable middle ground here where the guy is actually at?
The middle ground is Pro Football Focus rated him 31st.
Again.
No, but Charlie, look, last year...
Get with reality,
No, but again,
Charlie.
last year, based on his production alone, I understand 31st. But that's not putting any context into the situation. You know what I'm saying?
Well, how about the context of two neck injuries and an ACL?
No, and look, health is fine. If you're worried about the health part of it, we can't argue that part of it.
You shred his performances time after time. You don't use the injuries as part of what you're talking about. You just rip the guy like he's Tommy Maddox, and he's not. He's not. He's not Craig Morton either.
Well, before he was injured last year, he wasn't very good. His production was
The entire offense was in the tank.
Part of the offense.
Yeah, but Charlie, I want to ask you an honest question. All right, If the Giants, with who the Giants threw out there on the field in week 3, on that Thursday game against the 49ers, okay? If you played that game 100 times, how many times do you think the Giants would have won that game? Once? Twice? Maybe?
Maybe.
It was, but that's my point, man. It's such an overmatched situation where, people talk, Tyrod Taylor did better when he came in. Well, when Tyrod Taylor came in and started playing regularly, there was a better situation. Andrew Thomas eventually came back. Wan'Dale Robinson was back from injury. Barkley was back from injury. Things got better as the year went along, right? If you look at where they were in weeks, once you got past the Arizona game, they were 1-1, right? You got to weeks 3, 4, and 5. I mean, Charlie, you just called up about Josh Azudu playing tackle. You remember who was playing tackle in those games, right? Mm-hmm. It was Josh Azudu. You had Justin Pugh weighing 280 pounds coming in, starting at guard. I mean, it was an absolute disaster. And Charlie, I'm not being sarcastic here. Right. I literally went back and watched some of those games on tape. I cannot take anything out of the performance of any of the skill positions of the Giants players in those games. Running back, wide receiver, quarterback. The offensive line was so compromised, you could not function as an offense. That's how bad it was. It got better later in the year. It did get better later in the year. No question about it. That's why they
got a different quarterback. That's why it got better.
You didn't listen to what he said.
Charlie, let me ask you something. Charlie, does it matter? Does it matter having Andrew Thomas and Saquon Barkley on the field? Does that make a difference?
Well, it didn't make a difference when it was 40-0 when Dallas beat us.
Oh, God. After the first drive, Jones took him down the field. Thomas gets hurt. He doesn't have Thomas anymore, and then things changed.
Well, Thomas stayed in the game, but he wasn't the same.
Yeah, he wasn't the same.
Yeah, he was in the game. He was gimpy. Look, all I want is a new quarterback. And after this year, you guys are going to finally see it that we need a new quarterback.
Charlie, they designed the contract, and we talked about it when they signed that you can get out after 2 years. That was the whole point of the negotiation.
Well, they better get out of it. That's all I can say. Look, guys, have a great weekend.
Hey, you too, Charlie.
All right, Charlie, be good.
Thank you. Appreciate the call. You okay? See, because you can see the narrow spots of logic there, but then he lets his emotions overcome him.
Yeah, he just he doesn't put any of things into context.
Yeah, it's the lack of context.
It's just he's got that narrow, laser focus, tunnel vision. I'm just gonna get this guy. And he said it. He goes. He's going to be on Jones forever. He's never going to let up.
He's right. Daniel Jones's production when he played in games last year was terrible. But why? Why was it terrible? Because he wasn't terrible the year before. So why was it terrible last year? Did he become a worse quarterback over the summer? And again, not to say he was a top 8 quarterback the year before that either. That's not what we're saying, right? You got to find that area where he kind of gets in where the sweet spot is. That's it. That's it. That's all I got. Dom, who's the last caller? I don't have my docket, my computer. Let's go to Antonio. What's going on, man?
Hey, how you guys doing?
We're good, man. How's it going?
It's good. I just wanted to get your thoughts on how concerning do you think the depth is at certain positions like defensive tackle and corner?
No, good question. We just talked about the offensive line. That's one area where I think with a lot of the veterans like Schlotman and Stinney, tackle we'll see, depending on where, Illuminor ends up going. But yeah, there are some spots like, you talk about depth at corner, you're trying to figure out your 2 starters too at the nickel and the outside spot. So I think as much as depth as corner is a problem, you're trying to figure out who your standout players are there. I think you feel okay with your 3 safeties. I think depth at inside linebacker is something I'm really concerned about. Like, God forbid if Bobby Okereke misses a month, what the hell are they going to do?
Well, Bobby's a really high-level player. Replacing him with anybody is going to be a drop.
But there's not anyone that's started any amount of games sitting behind him.
I'll say this to you. The depth chart has a lot of numbers, but again, they're all projection players, and that causes concern. For me, I'm going to continue to say this, although they've kind of solidified the one spot. They've added the veteran corner in Trey Herndon from Jacksonville. Okay, they just brought him in. So they've added a veteran corner who can play boundary and he can play in the slot.
He's mostly, I would not count him being an outside corner. I think he's a slot guy.
He's done both, though, in the league, is my point.
He hasn't played outside in 4 years.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
I understand that. but he has done both in this league before. And so they've kind of added numbers to that spot. My concern has still been, okay, they got a bunch of projections at 3 technique. I don't think Nacho particularly had a great year last year, and they need him to be better, or they need one of their other many defensive tackles to be able to elevate their game to make me feel really comfortable.
That was another spot I was
That's a spot that is very soft for me right now. There's a big bruise there. The other one is the Giants do not have a bruising back. I spent a good 15 to 20 minutes with Brian Baldinger at the last practice the other day, and we talked about how you need beef and muscle to get that 3rd and 1.5 or that 4th and 1.5. As it stands now, the Giants' only interior runner is Singletary. He is not a bruiser. He will not push a pile an extra 2 yards or move people backwards. He does run inside, but he is not going to push the pile. The Giants do not have a big, bruising, powerful back in short yardage situations. They're going to have to rely on their offensive line to give a crease to whoever it is who's going to run it. Is it going to be Tracy? Is it going to be Gray? Is it going to be Singletary? They're going to have to get a crease because they don't have a back who can push that pile 1.5 yards. For me, that is an Achilles. Okay? That's an Achilles. And I'd like to see that added before opening day.
I could definitely see a veteran being added there at some point.
Anything else, Antonio?
Yeah, I also wanted to ask about Joshua Ezeudu. Like, why is the majority of his snaps coming at tackle when they picked him with a high 3rd-round pick to be a guard, and he had a bad performance at tackle when he did step into that role last season?
No, good question, Antonio. Thanks for the call. Look, we talked about this. They think that he has the feet to play the position. I think they've talked to Carmen Brasillo. He looks at the tape when he gets here. He works with the guys, and I'm sure he came back and they said, look, I think he has a chance to become a tackle. And the other factor, and this might even be the biggest one, to be quite honest with you, is that the numbers, and we talked about this at offensive tackle, right? Evan Neal didn't really do any team stuff in the spring. He did a little bit here or there, but that was it. Andrew Thomas didn't do a ton of team stuff really in the spring, and Matt Nelson, their veteran addition at tackle, he didn't do really any team stuff over the course of the spring. So they were just short tackles. So I think they wanted to get him some work there. They needed someone to fit the spot in case they need him there. He has some reps there now, and I think that's kind of how I look at it. I'm curious again to see how they use him and set him up when we get to the summer.
Because of the situation last year when Ezeudu had to play tackle, I would only say this. Long term, it's unfair to grade that tape at tackle and say that he can't do it. That's unfair.
That was a pull in case of emergency, plug him in there type of situation.
That was smash open the fire extinguisher.
Yes. He had not taken, maybe he had done it in practice behind closed doors, but in the summer last year in training camp practices, he didn't take any snaps at tackle. Which is why all of us were blown away when they made the move.
Impossible situation for him. So don't tag that on him and say he can't do it. We don't know the answer to that yet, and obviously Coach Brasillo thinks there must be something there, or he wouldn't put him there at all.
Yeah, and I think part of it too is that right now, with the guys they added in free agency, and then we'll wrap up. I know we're a little long, Tom. Sorry. With the guys they added in free agency, they probably feel like, all right, we're kind of good here with our starters. So if he's going to be a backup, what do you want from your backup offensive lineman? You want them to be able to play as many positions as possible.
Yep.
So get a guy in there, get him some more work at tackle when he hasn't had a lot of work there in the past. Again, you have a lot of tape of him at guard. That was his primary position in college, so you feel like he can go and plug in there if he has to anyway. So, and he's still at tackle learning all the protection rules and everything that he is from Carmen Brasillo. So it's not like he's not learning the pass pro rules and technique, whether you're playing guard or tackle. He's in all those conversations anyway, right? So I think you put all those together, that's probably why he saw more time at tackle in the spring, because, again, you want your backups, and right now he's slated to be a backup,
right,
to be able to play as many positions as you can. So, frankly, I mean, odds are a guy that was a third-round pick into his third year, he's probably not going to get cut, but you want your backups to play as many positions as possible so they hold as much value as possible, especially if, assuming the 5 starters are the 5 starters, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have Schlottman as your backup center, in theory. Mm-hmm. I know Morrissey got a lot of run at center, too, in the spring. You have Stinney as one of your backup guards, right?
Right.
you don't want to have another only guard backup.
No.
Your other guy needs to be a guard tackle backup, which is probably why you want, and then your next guy is going to be probably a tackle only backup, right? So you want that other guy to be able to play guard and tackle. And that, again, this is my roundabout way to get back to the original point. That you want him to be able to play both spots.
Remember, Tyree Phillips is not here.
Yeah.
He tore a muscle in his leg, and he won't even be able to be back on the field for anybody, I think, until November. He's a free agent.
What they said? November for him?
I believe so.
Wow.
Now but he's a free agent anyway.
Right.
He's not even signed. And that was a guy who could play a little tackling guard for you.
Yeah,
he's not here.
Correct.
Okay. Done.
For Paul Dottino, I'm John Schmeelk. Thank you to Dom. Excellent job. He gave us the air pound there, I guess is what I'll call it. The air
we'll take
pound or whatever. So thanks for being with us. Season tickets, Giants.com/tickets. 2024 schedule is out. Become a season member law. You get benefits, all that good stuff. And then download Giants TV, the Giants streaming app as well. You've been watching and listening to Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the Giants. For Paul Dottino, I'm John Schmeelk. We're back for 4 shows next week. No show on Wednesday because of Juneteenth, but we'll be here on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday with more coverage of the Giants. The players are gone. They won't be back for 6 weeks. We hope we don't get, I still remember the 4th of July, God, what is it? It's 8 years ago now when my wife showed me the phone about the JPP
Don't go there. Don't go there.
Let's just avoid any of that over the next 8 weeks, okay, please? And that's it. Thanks for being with us. See you on Monday, everybody.
Sound is personal, intimate, and emotive.
Just like this podcast.
We are audiostack.ai.
We combine AI writing,
The best synthetic voices like ours.
With production like music and mastering.
And deliver them to be heard, be it ads, podcasts, or VOs for video.
just like this ad you're listening to right now.
However, we have millions of spots just like this on podcasts.
And rather than hearing from us, we want to hear from you.
How would you like to win an AI audio campaign for free?
Do you work with businesses, products, events, or causes that could benefit from free promotion on podcasts in the coming month?
Tell us how you might use synthetic voices.
Or dynamically change ads for a sports podcast like this versus arts, TV, and film, or even technology. Go to audiostack.ai/contest, and your company could be heard by millions. See webpage for T's and C's.
Hello, iHeart listener. We have a confession to make. Both iHeart and this commercial you're listening to right now would probably sound a heck of a lot better on the new Roku Pro Series TV. It's got side-firing speakers that fill your room with sound, Dolby Atmos audio that puts you right in the middle of the entertainment, and the ability to pair seamlessly with your home theater sound systems that already have surround sound and booming bass. If all that sounds too good to be true, it'll sound even better on the new Roku Pro Series. Your hearing isn't better, your TV is.